Hey Ritter friends, Scott Steffen here, and I am going to attempt to make a selfie video to introduce you to a skill set that we're going to be presenting at the next Ritter retreat. And our hope is that you will review this brief video and come to the next retreat ready to just kind of recreate the rough outline of it. And it's also our hope that you're going to show this to your leadership team. Not that I'm going to be really proud of this video, but here goes. The skill set we're going to be introducing is called Generating and Sustaining Creative Tension. And it's our belief that the task of the leader is to generate tension with the hope of increasing energy and urgency around change. And it's really not too difficult to generate creative tension. I'm going to show you the skill set involved in doing that, but what is incredibly difficult is sustaining. That was pretty cool. Sustaining creative tension. Because when we create tension, people don't like that. It creates anxiety, and we know that people don't behave at their best when they're anxious, and so the system's going to push back. They're going to resist change. Surprise, surprise. And so as leaders, we need to hold the tension. We need to sustain the tension in the midst of an anxious system when all hell breaks loose. So sounds like fun. So how do we generate creative tension? It begins with what we call current reality. We need to get really clear about what is our current reality. What's our current reality in our church? What's our current reality in our community? We want this to be as objective as we can possibly be, because if it's objective, then it can be shared. So people may not like what the current reality is, but if it's objective, they can't argue with it. For example, this morning I made the silly choice to actually step on a scale, and there was a number staring back at me, and it reflected the current reality of my weight, and I didn't like it, but short of arguing with the scale, I have to agree with it even though I don't like it. And so we want our current reality to be very objective. We want it to be very clear. The best friend of establishing current reality is clarity. The more clear we can become, the more compelling our current reality will be, the more compelling and the more shared it will be. So that's where we begin with the hard work of establishing current reality. We want a lot of voices speaking into that so it's not biased, so that it is objective. And then the next move as leaders is to start work on discerning God's preferred future. I'm just going to do initials for the sake of time. God's preferred future. And unless you're in the best church ever, current reality and God's preferred future are not going to overlap. There's going to be this distance from here to there. I'm having fun with this. And that distance is where the tension comes from. The fact that what is currently so in our church is not what God desires, that there is a desire that God has for us that is not reflected by our current reality, that creates some tension. And if we're really clear, that should be pretty compelling. If we care at all about what God desires, we're going to want to close that gap. Now, there's some unhealthy ways to close that gap. One of the ways is we can suddenly get fuzzy about current reality. We could say, oh, that number that was staring back at me on the scale, the scale must be broken. It's really not as bleak as we say it is. And so we try and move current reality closer to God's preferred future to eliminate the tension. We have to guard against that. God's preferred future. Another way we can reduce the tension is we can say that it's really not out here, it's closer to over here. You know, that God isn't calling us to take these radical steps of obedience and mission, that we're okay if we just do some things that will land us right about here. So we have to hold the tension, and the healthy way to close this tension, what we're shooting for, is to actually get into action, to take steps so that we can move towards God's preferred future. In this gap are all kinds of obstacles. There's a reason your congregation is over here and not here. And it's because of all the obstacles that are in this gap. Some of those obstacles might be a lack of knowledge. There's some basic knowledge or skill sets that you and your leaders lack to get into action. Maybe there's some emotional immaturity, some anxiety, some unresolved conflict, some integrity gaps, some lack of accountability or encouragement, all kinds of things. And so as you start to get into action from current reality to here, you're going to have to navigate through all of these obstacles to make some traction and get some progress towards God's preferred future. So the line is not linear. It's a crazy, chaotic journey, as we would expect. And the last thing that I want to introduce about this model is what we call default future. You've heard it said that if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And we want to say that that's not true. Your congregation today, the current reality today, if you do nothing different, 5 years from today, 3 years from today, it's going to be a different congregation. There is a default future that is out there. And so the idea, and this is especially true if you're in a church that is relatively healthy, that we can just stay the same. We've got a pretty decent current reality. The idea if we do nothing and things are going to stay the way they are is just patently false. There's a default future out there, and it's undefined and it's waiting for you. So this is the model of generating and sustaining creative tension, and there's a lot more to add to that. This is my first selfie video ever. I hope you enjoyed it. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. We're going to start by asking you to kind of recreate this model, not too difficult, and then we'll go from there. All right, blessings.